Hi, Kelly. Hi, Geordie. Hi. Hello. Hi there. Hi, Jess. Hi, Adam. This feels really weird, everybody being there. This is the first Instagram that I've done, so you'll have to bear with me. I'm used to having people face to face. How are you doing, Adam? Hi, Clive. Welcome. Hi, Neil. Welcome. Oh, I had... Hey, that's pressure. Okay, we'll give it another minute or so and then I'll make a start. Okay with everyone? Hi, Stacey. Welcome. Hi, Steph. How you doing? Hi, Sarah. Welcome. Thank you. Right. Okay. Well, I think I'll make a start, and then other people will join in as they come online. So, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Denise Kirkham. I'm one of the directors and co-founders of Distinctive People HR and OD Limited, and I've been dealing with recruitment and assessment for over 15 years in this type of consultancy role. Prior to that, I worked in banking and financial services for well over 20 years, and a lot of the work that I did there involved recruitment and assessment as well. So I'm here to talk to you today about recruitment and assessment. I would ask you to bear with me a bit. I'm on the back end of a bout of laryngitis, so my voice sounds a little bit huskier than it would normally. So apologies for that. This is a bit of a whistle-stop tour. I've kind of crammed quite a bit in, but obviously there's an opportunity. I think I've got about 15 minutes to talk to you, and then there's an opportunity for questions at the end. So do ask questions, because as I say, I'm just whizzing through some of the things. What I thought would be useful, rather than just jumping straight to the assessment and interview side of things, is actually start by thinking about what happens in some of the earlier stages of the process, because that's really important as well in terms of looking for a role and actually getting through that first stage. So you see the role that you want. What do you do then? I think for me, the really big thing, and this applies right the way through the process, is about research. So if there is an opportunity to have an informal conversation with either a consultant, if there's a firm dealing with the recruitment, or the organisation direct, then always take that. I don't think people take enough advantage of that, to be honest. And if you've spoken with the consultant, then you do stick in people's minds. If I'm working my way through a large pile of applications, as we do for some roles, those people that I've spoken to, you remember them and you remember how they came across. So, as I say, always take advantage of an informal discussion if that's given. It sounds obvious, and I'm sure you'd do it anyway, but do your research online, look at their website, look at all of the information. Look at all of the information that you can find. Talk to staff or managers at the organisation that are at the organisation already if you know them. What's really important is that you're not just going for roles, you're going for the best fit organisation for you all round. And that's a theme that I keep coming back to throughout the course of this very brief talk. So then we come on to what I would call the marketing stage. So how do you put yourself across? Well, in the housing sector, that tends to be with two things at application. It's a CV and a supporting statement. So for both of those, again, I would say tailor them to the roles. So you'll have your CV. I'm not suggesting for a minute that you've got to rewrite your CV every time you make an application. But most of us, and I do recommend that you do, have a short profile at the start of your CV. Tailor that profile as much as you can to the role. So mirror some of the language that the organisation are looking for. Look at what they've put in the advert. Look at what they've put in the person's specification in terms of skills and experience, and just mirror some of that so that immediately you're hooking somebody in and they're thinking, oh, I think this person's got something here. And that's particularly important, if you're in competition with a lot of people. It is about making yourself stand out at that stage. Likewise, with your supporting statement, what the clients are looking for here is do you fit with the role? Have you got what they're looking for? But they can get that a lot from your CV in terms of the basic skills and experience. But it's looking at your motivation and your approach as well. So make sure that when you're pulling together a supporting statement that you do include a short paragraph in terms of why this specific role. Because otherwise some of the supporting statements that I read, they come across as quite generic, and you think, well, that's okay, but you could be applying for anything really, and what is it about this organisation that really pulls you? So put something in about that, because again, high fears, because again, that's the sort of thing that the people are looking for when they're recruiting. Keep things short. If you're given two sides or 2 pages, keep it to 2 pages, and don't do that by putting everything in Arial size 8 font, because certainly I, for one, can't read that. So that tends to turn people off. So just demonstrate that you can communicate succinctly and that you're focused on what they're looking for. The other thing that I will mention briefly, although I know that I don't need to mention it, Yeah, absolutely, Fizz. Thank you. I know I don't need to mention it to you, and that's about the social media side of things. So again, organisations and consultants do look at social media, and they look at the what you're putting across about yourself on social media. So do you have a profile? What are you posting? What are the sorts of things that it's saying about you? Because again, this sort of fit and looking at the whole person is increasingly important, and there's so much information out there now that is very helpful for organisations and consultants. So on to the processes themselves then. Firstly, why do we use processes? Contrary to popular belief, it's not because all of us recruitment consultants are sadists at heart, not at all. It does mean that we can get to know more about you than you can just from a standard interview. And we get to see people in different situations and with different people. And that's really important. There's certainly within the housing sector, there's no element of anyone looking to catch people out. We put the processes together to pull out the best in people and to really give you an opportunity to demonstrate what you can do. So if you go into it with that sort of mindset, then I think that's helpful and will hopefully help to clear some of the nerves. Nerves are quite natural, and actually some element of nerves and adrenaline can be good because it just helps you sometimes up your game, but just try to make sure that those are not overcoming what you do. And as I'll say at the end, I think one of the key things in terms of overcoming nerves is about feeling that you're well prepared and that you've done everything you can beforehand. The other reason that we would use the sort of broader assessment processes comes back to the culture and fit again. So increasingly organisations do recruit for culture and fit, and putting people in a range of different scenarios will help organisations to assess whether you are the right culture and fit for them. And it gives you the opportunity to show what you can do rather than tell what you can do. Some people are not so good at interviews, but actually they're really good at getting in there and doing it. And likewise, some people are really good at interviews, but actually when it comes to doing it, they're not so good. So that's another reason for using them. So what can you expect if you're in some sort of extended assessment type interview process? This obviously varies from organisation to organisation. If I talk about the sort of key things that I tend to see again in this sector, so most will involve a panel interview. If you're not given the information beforehand, again, I would recommend that you always ask who's on the panel and then do your research on the panel. It's always good to know who your audience is going to be. Again, most consultancies or clients should be giving you that information beforehand, but don't ever be afraid to ask, because that's all part of your preparation. You may be asked to deliver a presentation. That could be in the form of a presentation where you're given the topic beforehand, so you can prepare it before you get in there, or it could be what we would call an unseen presentation, so you're given the topic when you arrive. Either way, what we're increasingly finding is that actually clients don't tend to want people to use PowerPoint as much, and quite often now clients will say no PowerPoint. What they're looking for is your ability to pull your thoughts together in a coherent way and put them across in a way that holds the attention of the audience, of the panel. So again, if you're in the process and you're asked to deliver a presentation without using PowerPoint, don't be perturbed. That is more usual now. Written exercises are sometimes used. Those written exercises may be beforehand, so you'll be given a topic and asked to complete a paper beforehand, and then sometimes present it as part of the assessment process. And also you could again be given topics on the day and given some time and a laptop to research and prepare a paper. That would tend to be for those roles where report writing and written communication is particularly key, and it's less usual in a lot of the housing sector roles that we recruit, but you may come across that. And then group exercises. So group exercises, again, take a variety of different formats, and they tend to be observed by the panel. I do understand that they can be quite nerve-wracking, although a number of people have said to me that once they get into it, some of them do actually forget that they've got observers there. So the group exercises, again, will tend to be put together in such a way that you're given some information. You sometimes get the opportunity to look at that individually for a few minutes beforehand, and then you're put together as a group, generally with unallocated roles, so you're all given the same information, and then you're asked to either come up with a solution, come up with an action plan, come up with a presentation, and you have to work it out as a group of people. What we're looking for there, obviously, is the way that you interact with other people. Are you contributing? Are you somebody that's actually talking over everybody? Are you involving other people? Are you coming up with ideas, or are you following on from other people's ideas? Are you keeping an eye on the time? Are you keeping people focused on what you're there to do? So again, really think about the role. If there's a group exercise involved, think about the role that you're going for and the sorts of skills that the panel are going to be looking for. One thing that I would say about group exercises, and this is a very personal thing, but at some point there's generally a need for somebody to get hold of the pen and write on the flip chart. The only thing I would say about that is that if you've got the pen and you're writing on the flip chart, then you've got your back to the rest of the group, and it's also more difficult for you to get your thoughts together coherently and keep up with the discussion. So I have seen some people who are very keen to get hold of the pen, but then once you've got the pen, unless you're very skillful, it's not as easy to be involved in the discussion. So that's a little hint. And probably what I'll find now in all the assessments moving forward is that we've not got anybody that's prepared to pick the pen up. Okay. The other things that you can expect as part of an assessment and recruitment process is psychometrics. So psychometrics, just the word, seems to strike terror in people's hearts. They will be of two different types. So the first type will be personality profiles. Now, personality profiles are used again to get more information out of you. That they're used to enable us to sort of dig into some areas that it's not always easy to do, even when we've put together quite a detailed assessment process. So it looks at your likes, your dislikes, your style, your preferences, and what people are likely to see of you on a day-to-day basis. We're never looking for a set profile. If a client came to me and was looking for a set personality profile, I would really wonder about what their organisation looks and feels like. So there's no right or wrong answers here. And my advice in personality profiles is that you work through them as quickly as you can and go with your gut instinct. If you try to second guess what we're looking for, and if you try to put together a personality profile that you think is going to fit the role, you will end up with probably quite an odd personality profile in truth. It will be skewed in different directions, and in most personality profiles there is a consistency measure. So we can tell if people are trying to do that. So be yourself, work as quickly as you can through them, and don't worry about what comes out. The most important thing is that we're getting an accurate picture of you. Again, best practice is you should always get feedback on that personality profile, ideally beforehand, but if not, ask for feedback afterwards so that you can see what's coming out in terms of your profile. And if you want to, always ask for a copy of the report as well. That should be available for you. The other exercises that you're likely to come across in psychometrics are the ability type exercises. So these will be the ones that are looking at critical thinking, verbal reasoning, numerical reasoning. These are timed exercises, and the timing is key. So with these, I would say If you get to a question and you get stuck on it, move on. Just move on, move your thinking on, and do the next question. And then if you get a chance, go back and look at the question that you couldn't deal with. Because if you spend too much time focusing on one question, you'll find that you kind of impact on your ability to complete the whole test. With ability type exercises in particular, there's generally an opportunity to complete some tests, if you like, some sample tests beforehand. Again, always do that, because what that gives you is an idea of what's coming up. As I said, most of these exercises are completed online, so you'll be sat there sort of waiting for something to pop up on the screen, a bit like me with Instagram today. If you've already done some sample exercises and at least you're familiar with the layout and the sort of thing that's coming, then that will help you in terms of your preparation. But other than that, it is measuring ability, so it's very difficult to give any hints and tips about that. But what I would say that's hopefully reassuring is that those exercises are only part of a process. So if you're working your way through a process and you find those exercises difficult, or you've had the results and you didn't do as well as you wanted to do, don't worry about it, put it behind you, because the reason why we do so many different exercises is to test you in different situations. So it would be very unusual for somebody to make a final decision on somebody's ability just through the use of a psychometric exercise. It helps to form a total picture of you, so don't over worry about those, and don't be scared about them. Okay, I think I've pretty well used up my my 15 minutes, or maybe a little bit more. I think in summary, I would say that my key points are about preparing. So prepare and research, and really think about your audience. Also think about what you want to get out of it. So that may sound ridiculous because you want to get a job out of it, but we see a lot of really good candidates through processes, and only one person can get the role. And if you don't get that role, it's not because you're not good at something, it's because actually for that organisation, for that role, somebody else was a better fit. So these are also development opportunities for you. And I know it's difficult because you put your heart and soul into it, and sometimes you really want roles. But I think if you can get into the mindset that these processes are, that these processes are development opportunities as well, and always make sure that you get feedback afterwards from either the consultant or I'll come back to that in a minute, Fizz, to either the consultant or the client, whoever's been the lead on this. So make sure that you get some really good feedback that will help you develop moving forwards. We have a policy for it, and I think that's one of the most important parts of the process in terms of taking your development forward. And be yourself. Don't try and pretend to be something that you're not. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. As I said at the beginning, it was a really whistle-stop tour. But if you want to put questions up, I'll try and answer those for you. Okay, Fizz, you've asked, why do recruiters ask what your previous salary is? I mean, we don't always ask that. Some recruiters ask it as a matter of course. What it does is that it helps to give recruiters an indication or an additional indication of the level at which you're operating currently. It's not the only factor by any means, but it is an indicator, and it just gives us something so that when we're looking at the rest of your application, it's easier sometimes to see whether it's because or whether you're actually going for a step-up role, a big step-up role. It doesn't take you out of the process by any means, but it just kind of helps us to position you and your application. Okay, Clive, I'm trying to read this here. It's tiny writing. Housing specifics roles are generic recruitment agencies okay, or is it better to focus on housing specific agencies? I mean, I would probably say my recommendation would always be to go with people who are specialists where possible. I think that there's enough housing specific agencies out there to mean that that's not necessarily closing down your options. And what that does mean is that you will be talking to people and to consultants that understand the language, that understand the sector, that know organisations and people in the sector. So if you're going to them with your CV and you're looking for them to sell you, then I think that that's helpful. And I think that a lot of organisations, their starting point, if they're looking at very housing specific roles, will be with housing specific agencies. Having said that, if you're looking for roles that are quite generic roles, so if you're, for example, in HR in housing, or if you're in finance in housing, then organisations are within housing are very open to people from outside of sector. So I think it really depends on your professionalism. I hope that's okay, Clive. Let me know if you want a bit more. Sarah, what's the best way to tackle the question, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Yeah. Okay. I think that I have to say that's not a question that I particularly like, because I think it's very difficult for people to say where they see themselves in 5 years. So what I would do is actually focus on the sorts of skills and the sorts of experiences that you hope to be exposed to in 5 years, rather than trying to pin somebody down to either saying, oh, well, obviously I'll still be here. So sometimes you may get asked that by an organisation because they want to say if you're sort of you see yourself in the role long term, which again is not necessarily the right thing. Some roles are shorter term roles, and actually it's right to have somebody in it on a regular basis. So yeah, my focus would be on the experience that you're likely to get, and the sorts of things and skills that you'll be able to use over the next 5 years, rather than focusing on a particular role and a level. Evie, sorry, what advice would you give to an applicant looking to balance quality between a CV and accompanying support statement? I'm not quite sure I know what you mean there. Evie, do you mean how do you put quality across? Let me know what you mean. Type it in. I can see you've got no headphones, you've said now, so so that's fine. Right, I think, have I dealt with everybody's questions so far? Yeah. Are there any other aspects that I, oh, okay, what are your top 3 fonts? Oh, thanks, eh? Don't. Level of info, okay, level of info between CV and statement. Yeah, okay, good one. So, don't just put your statement together in such a way that it doesn't build on the CV at all. So if you've put a lot of information in your CV and your supporting statement really just duplicates that, then you're not adding anything with your supporting statement. So for me, I would focus on your CV, as I say, put a good profile that's related to the role. Put a number of bullet points. Leslie, I hope I'm answering your question as well. Put a number of bullet points that highlight the really big achievements that you've had, or big to you. What are the things that you're proud of that you've achieved throughout your career? And put those at the start of your CV. So again, they're hooking people in. And then use your CV to highlight the different roles that you've done, the different organisations that you've been in, and both your key areas of of responsibility and again the key achievements in each role. It's not about regurgitating your job description. That's the worst thing to do really with a CV. And then use your supporting statement to demonstrate what that experience that's in your CV, what does that mean that you bring to this particular role. So as I said earlier, in your supporting statement, make it quite clear why you want that particular role in that particular organisation, and then what is it about your skills and experience that match to what they're looking for in the person's specifications. So look at the skills and experience and tailor your supporting statement to that. Okay, so hopefully, Leslie, that answered about making your CV stand out from the crowd as well. Keep it focused on achievements and painting a picture of you that matches with the role. What are the top... Oh, okay, Aid, and now I'm with you. The top 3 don'ts in a recruitment process. Look, this is my first time, and you mistyping isn't helping. Okay, the top 3 don'ts. Oh, gosh. Okay, don't go into a recruitment process and an interview process without having carried out your research. If you don't know enough about the organisation and the role, and you've literally just read the pack that we send, then that will come across. This is a kind of do and a don't, if you like, and this is a really difficult one, but don't always, what you need to put across is what you do. So don't always talk about we when you're giving examples of things, and you're dealing with an interview question that's sort of like, talk to me about an example when you've done X, Y and Z. Don't always use the terminology we, but then you do have to balance that with the fact that you equally you don't want the interview to come across as I either. But if you're trying to put across and give an example of something that you've done, then you need to make it clear what your role was. So make sure that you put that across. Oh gosh, I've got loads coming in now. I always find it difficult to cover off the job description requirements without being repetitive. Yeah, I mean, Sarah, that's another one from you. In truth, I wouldn't focus on the individual job description requirements. My focus would be on the person spec, because that's what they're looking for. So I would do a bit, say, a paragraph in your experience that relates to what the role is about and the overarching things in the job description. But then in terms of specific skills and experience, take that more from the person specification, rather than trying to match anything to the job description, because as you say, it will become repetitive. And I guess coming back to I don't think I've given you 3, but my third don't would be for me, and maybe this is personal, but don't do your supporting statement just in bullet point format, particularly if you're going for a more senior level role and you're trying to put across a sort of strategic view. It looks a bit listed, and it doesn't really give us enough of a feel about you. Okay, fab. Any notable recruiter, Clive? Any notable recruiters in the north of England? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I mean, a lot of the recruiters in the housing sector work right across the country. I'm not just ducking that. I don't know any, but maybe some of the others on here. Maybe some of the others on here will do. Evie, am I running out of time here? I think I have, haven't I? So thank you all very much for your time. You've made it really painless for me, and good luck all with your job searching. And as I said at the beginning, I'm always happy to have individual conversations if that's going to help. Many thanks. Bye. Bye, everyone.